It is 1869 and Canada has just become an independent country. John A. Macdonald, or SJAM, is the first Prime Minister, and he has a dream for Canada, to make Canada a strong country. But how was SJAM going to make his dream a reality? SJAM knew that strong countries had strong economies. Strong economies were only possible with thriving industries, and industries were only possible if there were people to work in them. So he made a plan and designed a policy that would address all of these things. It was called the National Policy. The goal of national policy was to create a strong Canada, and it was broken down into three sections. First was the transportation policy. The goal of this policy was to build a strong railway across the country. The second was the immigration policy. The goal here was to use the railway and bring people to Western Canada. The third policy was the economic policy. Its goal was to have the immigrants build and work in industries that would create a strong national economy. So let's stop and think for a minute. A strong national economy would create what? Yep, you guessed it. A strong country. And SJAM's dream could become a reality. But with any dream or plan, there are always little details to deal with first. SJAM's first detail was securing the land. So he had to add one extra step to his plan. The first part of John A.'s plan was to secure the land in Canada. The second was to build a railway across Canada. The third part of the plan was to bring immigrants to the west to farm and build industries. And the last part was industries would grow and build a strong economy. Canada has the second largest landmass in the world and is rich in natural resources. Because the land was so valuable, SJAM wanted to secure its claim to the land in the west. But why was he so anxious to lay claim to this land? Well, I am so glad that you asked. First, the government could not give land to settlers until they knew which land belonged to them. Second, Sir John A. Macdonald wanted to secure the land before the Americans could occupy it and sent people out to mark the Canada-US border. With the help of Métis guides, surveyors measured and marked Canada's territory along the 49th parallel. With the borders clearly marked, Sir John A. Macdonald now had to deal with the lawlessness in Whoop-Up country. If you've ever been to Medicine Hat, you may have heard of Cypress Hills. There's a beautiful campground there that borders Alberta and Saskatchewan. For centuries, the Cree, Nakota, and Siksika nations had hunted game animals and cut pine trees for their homes. In the 1860s, this territory became known as Whoop-Up country because of the whiskey traders who came up from the United States. Although selling liquor was illegal, these outlaws traded liquor for furs, and nobody was around to stop them. So why not, eh? But things got worse. Americans would come to Canada and hunt the wolves. They became known as the wolfers. Their tactics were to poison the buffalo carcasses. The wolves would eat the meat and then die. The wolfers would collect the pellets. Sounds reasonable, right? Pretty smart tactic, right? Well, there was just one problem. The First Nations dogs also ate the meat from the buffalo carcasses. Guess what? The dogs died too. The First Nations would, of course, retaliate and steal the wolfers' horses. This caused big trouble in Whoop-Up country. And John A. wanted to stop this. So let's pause and recap what we've learned so far. Number 1, Sir John A. Macdonald marks the Canada-US border to claim the land before the Americans do. Number 2, the wolfers and whiskey traders are wreaking havoc in Whoop-Up country. So what's the big deal? Why does John A. Macdonald want to stop this? Well, let's think back to his plan. He wants to build a strong country. To do this, he needs to build a strong economy. To do that, he needs to build industries. To build industries, he needs to bring farming families to the West. Now, let's stop and think about this. Whiskey traders and wolfers are creating conflict with the First Nations. Do you think that your parents would bring you all the way across the Atlantic Ocean and then halfway across the continent to go and live there? Yeah, probably not. And Sir John A. Macdonald knew this and knew that the immigrants wouldn't bring their families either. And if this happened, his dream would go down the toilet. But do not fear, students. A police force will soon appear. Sir John A. Macdonald had also heard about the lawlessness in America's West. Now, you may have heard or seen movies about the Wild Wild West and those gunfights at high noon. Yeah, well, Sir John A. Macdonald, he did not want this in Canada. And if that wasn't enough, there was the conflict at Cypress Hills between the First Nations and wolfers that ended in bloodshed. The solution? You got it. To create the Northwest Mounted Police. Dun dun dun! The goal of the Northwest Mounted Police was to show the United States that Canada controlled the border. They were also to shield the Aboriginal peoples from American outlaws. They were to help newcomers adjust to the frontier and keep the peace between the First Nations and newcomers. So the government recruited young men from the ages of 18 to 40 who were able-bodied, healthy, could ride a horse, were good with a gun, and liked adventure. They also should have added orienteering or a good sense of direction too, because these men got lost on their way out and matey guides had to go and rescue them. But fear not, dear students. They finally did make it, and the Northwest Mounted Police set up in the forts that are in present-day Fort Macleod, Cypress Hills, Edmonton, and Calgary. The jobs of the Northwest Mounted Police were, number 1, clear out the whiskey traders. Number 2, arrest lawbreakers and put them on trial. Number 3, deliver the mail. And lastly, fight forest fires and assist new farmers. So John A. can rest easy now, and he is one step closer to making the dream of a strong Canada a reality. The borders have been marked. Americans know we control the land. The lawbreakers are being punished. Peace is being established, and it is safe to build the railway and bring people west to farm and build industries, and therefore a strong economy. Woohoo!